Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something pretty practical.
Yeah.
Dry ice blasting for industrial cleaning.
Yeah, and the big question you've sent us sources on is, well, should you rent or buy the equipment?
Exactly. Dry ice blasting itself is pretty neat tech. Uses solid CO2 pellets, they hit the surface, turn straight back into gas sublimation.
Which means no extra mess,
Yeah.
right? Unlike sandblasting or water blasting where you have cleanup afterwards. It's effective and, quite eco-friendly.
Definitely. So looking at the info you sent, our job today is to really dig into those cost factors and the pros and cons that your sources highlight. Basically, help you figure out what makes sense.
And the first thing that jumps out, looking at the numbers, is just the huge difference in the initial costs.
Oh, absolutely. On the rental side, the sources are showing figures like, what, $1,600 a week?
Yeah, for a decent, say, 40-pound machine, that's the hopper size, or maybe $5,000 if you rent it for a whole month.
That feels like quite a bit for, just temporary use.
It does, especially when the sources compare it to buying. They mention purchasing maybe a slightly smaller unit, like a 33-pound one, for around $3,000.
$3,000 to own it versus $1,600 for 1 week of renting something similar.
Exactly, and this leads to a really critical point in the material you shared.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. The sources actually calculate that you could potentially make back that $3,000 purchase price
Get this.
in less than 2 weeks of use, just by avoiding those weekly rental fees.
It's a remarkably fast potential payback, isn't it? Based purely on comparing those two numbers.
It really changes how you might think about it.
But, and this is super important, the sources really stress this, that quick payback is only looking at the blaster itself. There are other big costs.
Right, costs that apply no matter what, whether you rent or buy the actual blaster.
Precisely. You've still got the cost of the dry ice pellets. That's going to vary depending on your job size, how much you use.
Okay, makes sense.
And maybe the biggest one, you need a serious air compressor. The sources talk about needing something like a 100 CFM unit.
CFM being cubic feet per minute. That's not your standard shop compressor.
No, not at all. We're talking likely a big trailer-mounted diesel compressor. And that has to be rented or bought separately, too. It's a major factor.
Okay, so even with that quick potential ROI on the machine, you've got these other significant costs. So how do the sources break down who should rent versus who should buy?
Well, they suggest rental, despite being pricey per gent, makes sense for really short-term jobs. One-off projects or maybe something you only do once a year, perhaps.
That temporary flexibility.
Exactly. But given how fast you might recoup the purchase cost of the blaster.
The sources seem to lean pretty heavily towards buying if you have any kind of regular cleaning need, right?
They do. It's presented as making much more financial sense pretty quickly for ongoing tasks.
And it's not just about saving on rental fees, is it? The sources mentioned other benefits to owning.
Yeah, lots of them. Convenience is huge. The machine's just there. No booking, no pickups, no returns, no waiting around.
You control the schedule completely.
Totally. Plus, you avoid rental deposits. And the sources point out there's no worry about, penalties if you accidentally damage a rental unit.
That's a good point. Those deposits can be hefty.
And eventually there might even be some resale value if you upgrade or your needs change.
What about the downsides of owning? Maintenance?
Maintenance is mentioned, yeah. That's a cost you take on. But the sources generally suggest it's manageable and, easily outweighed by skipping those constant rental payments long term.
Okay. So sort of wrapping up the core message from the material you sent.
It seems pretty clear. Rental works maybe for truly occasional, very infrequent use, but it's expensive week by week.
Whereas buying, despite the initial outlay, seems to become the more cost-effective and convenient option, surprisingly fast if you use it with any regularity.
It really boils down to that classic trade-off, short-term flexibility versus long-term value and convenience. But the twist here from your sources is how soon those long-term benefits of buying can potentially kick in. So the final thought for you, the listener, to chew on is this. Given that potential payback in under 2 weeks compared to renting, does that maybe change how you define occasional versus frequent use for your own specific situation? It's definitely something worth considering based on this analysis.